Yes, welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting for January 13th, 2020. Call to order at 6:34. Roll call, please.
Select Chair, Ms. Hart.
Excused.
Select Vice Chair, Mr. Kishka.
Here.
Selectman Mr. Blinn.
Here.
Selectman Mr. Talion.
Here.
And note for the record, Town Manager Mr. Pearson is here.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I thought you were going to reprint them.
Oh, I didn't know you wanted them reprinted. No, I took it off, so as soon as I print a new one, they're done.
All right, anyone, any approval for or comments about the minutes of January 6th? I'll entertain a motion to approve it.
Make a motion that we approve the January 6, 2020 Board of Selectmen minutes.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All right, John seconds it. Any discussion? If there's no discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0-0. Is there any public comment? There being none, we'll move on to a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing to consider sports betting in Plaistow at 6:36. Is there anyone wishing to speak as far as this?
I do.
Please come forward. Are you a resident of the town, I hope?
I am, Plaistow, 341 Main Street.
And please speak into the microphone, your name and your
Cole
address.
Chaprari, 341 Main Street.
Thank you.
So I saw this town meeting, and it was going to be brought up for sports betting. So the question I had was, is it delegated to just contracts for DraftKings and big players within it that would have a retail establishment or location located within Plaistow that you're voting on? Or what is the discussion about, I guess, and what, in further detail?
Yeah, I don't think the bill actually is that detailed, but I know Greg has.
To my understanding, the state will assign initially 10 licenses to retail organizations to have them have the betting parlor per se inside of it.
For sure, agents, right.
Residents of the state can register at one of those 10, and then they can bet online through that.
Through a mobile app or, correct.
So if you are allowing sports betting in the town, you are basically opening up for, if additional locations are going to be chosen, then organizations are, I don't want to even describe what kind of, typically like restaurants or some type of suitable organization could petition the state to get one of these, 11 and on.
Right, so the list that we'd be, if, as a resident in Plaistow, if there was an organization that was approved on the commissioner's list as an agent or a handler, right?
Right.
Then we would have another meeting to vote on whether that retail establishment can open up on shop on 125. And then,
Actually, the way
can I be a bookie? Can I be a handler, right? If I had a bankroll. So that's, that's the thing, is that if there's only approved 10 lists, then there's only options of big corporations being involved to get in on action. I read the bill.
Right.
And
So-
some of it should go to education. I know there was some gripes about our property taxes. So where would that money, what would Plaistow receive if there was an establishment that was located on 125 in Plaistow?
So
How would that get allocated?
So let's start a little bit towards the beginning. Right now, the way the law is written is this is called an opt-in law, which means the town has to decide that they would like to have establishments
Right.
possibly be sports betting parlors or locations. So that would have to either be a petition from a resident in town brought forth, and if that petition comes forth by the deadline, we would put it on this year's warrant list.
Gotcha.
If that does not occur, the Board of Selectmen can decide yea or nay that they would like to have that warrant appear on the ballot. If neither of those things happen, then it would be open for the next year for
Right.
either a petition or the selectmen to decide, yes, we would like to have this opened into the town.
Okay.
So, this is so soon, there hasn't been any polling or any requests
Right.
whatsoever. So the very first time we would be able to have a collection of opinion from the voters would be this coming March. And the deadline to get a new warrant, or get a petition in is the 14th.
Right, so I guess maybe there's not as much details panned out as I thought. So if it's to approve it, but then also when would the discussion happen if residents did approve of it for, DraftKings is coming to New Hampshire, and they're going to open up shops for age verification.
Right.
Mobile betting, and if they open up here, that's an influx of cash. I don't know if you read the numbers of Rhode Island, so as being a resident, I have 2 kids who go to Pollard. I have them going to Timberland when they get old enough, of course. The tax bills have increased. So when would the discussions happen, and would it be an open discussion of where that money's being received? The state's receiving commission based off the bets, right? And then where's the influx of the cash? Is Plaistow receiving any of that for?
It is defined inside of the sports betting law, or what was passed by the legislator, by Concord. So that's in there. There's quite a few pages. It's a fairly long bill. So they have described how revenue is
Not percentage of
shared.
revenue to the town, so.
Right, but they basically have spelled out how the income would be dispersed. And again,
It is,
I really
unfortunately,
have
it's
got
not
to the
spelled out.
beginning of that and trying to understand
Right.
what do we have to do in terms of presenting it to the people of the town for their opinion, or whether they want it or don't want it. So it doesn't really stop anybody from betting. It's just that they would go through one of the original 10 that have already been assigned
Right.
first.
Right,
And-
very,
and
very
then-
select few.
So my guess is that the state wants to see how this is going to work out before they then increase it to a larger number.
But so let's say it was approved. Last thing, I'm not going to take
Right.
too much time, but let's say if it was approved and we had a DraftKings, there was, another big
Yep.
corporate conglomerate that came in and just, cranking cash, right? Anyone here, can they speak on behalf of what money or percentage the towns would receive? Because that is not spelled out or detailed within the bill.
Yeah, I
And
think-
if that was decided, what is that number? And then who would be deciding that number? Would it be us, or would it be parties to be in where it's dispersed?
To my understanding,
sense?
any revenue that is taken off of that, of the betting, would go directly to the schools. How the process works, I haven't read it into that level of detail. So I think we're a little bit premature.
Right, for sure,
To
okay.
determine those details. But that's what I know right now.
Okay.
And if you pull a bill off of the website, you can get a little understanding, at least in terms of where they perceive the purpose of the revenue being.
I saw the education. I just
clear.
didn't see, and maybe I'm getting into, too many details right now. I do know the industry. I know I know it. So I'm just wondering, as a resident, if it were to come in, that's an influx of potentially millions of dollars, right? You got Havel right there. You don't think people are going to come from Mass. So
Yep.
where's that money going to be used? And that's where I'm going. And when would the last thing, when would the next meeting be held for this? When's the agenda? Is there anything, or is it just?
As I said before, the 14th, by the 14th, any warrant that would be requested by a citizen with 25 signatures would need to be presented to the Board of Selectmen before the 14th for it to be included on the ballot.
Gotcha, okay.
So after the 14th, the Selectmen have the option of either saying, yes, we want to put the warrant on, even though we haven't heard from the citizens, or no, we want to wait to see what happens.
Right, so if you don't get 25 signatures, it's not on there next year?
It'll be on there next year, yeah, that's right.
Okay, perfect,
Okay.
thank you.
I'd like to answer some of your question. I guess it's sort of like the Keno that we had last year, that we had to approve it in order for it to happen. We didn't really have control after that, the state did.
Right.
Because it's highly regulated. Well, the thing is, the same thing with this. This is going to be highly regulated. There isn't going to be the bookie down the street, because that would be illegal.
Of course, I understand that.
As far as the distribution of funds just like Keno, they decide up at the state how it gets distributed, what the formula is. There was never a promise, even with the Keno, that we would get the proportional percentage of how much was earned in our town.
Right.
I guess they distribute it amongst the state as they see fit.
Well, yeah, and not to interrupt you, but, you know, my concern is not necessarily yet, I'll bet on sports. I have no problem with that. But the thing is, with the influx of traffic, you know, you're talking about if you have to go, like Rhode Island does, the age verification before you can place a mobile bet, you know, the purpose is you're going to get an influx from everyone. And if Plaistow has a retail location, that bottleneck right there near 5, you know, I drive by it every day. It's bad enough. And don't tell me that there's not going to be an influx of traffic because you have to stop there to be able to bet on the mobile app, right? So maybe the questions can't be answered yet, but that's just really my concern is that me commuting home at 5 o'clock and then where's that money going? And are we even getting money? And DraftKings just gets to have a nice neon sign, right? So
You raise a lot of good questions.
Well, they wouldn't have the
Really.
neon signs, it would be against regulations in the town.
yeah, well,
don't allow it,
you got Home Depot and everything.
Yeah.
But I love it. But so it's just I guess I need more information, and you know, I'll
Yes.
wait.
Thank
So,
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
I did, I guess my discussion, I did have a short talk with the police chief. I talked to the town manager, some with his law enforcement experience. Mike, one of my big concern, what would it do? Would it have an effect on crime or police and things like that? And I'm not going to speak to it. I mean,
Right.
I'd ask the town manager to
I
speak
think
to
it's
it
great.
after, yeah.
People should have the opportunity to spend their money wherever they, you know, no one should tell me where I could spend my money, whether I want to take a high risk bet
Yeah.
or not, right? But it's just where does it impact the residents, the
Mm-hmm.
traffic, where does the money go, the big picture. So,
You have to live free or die here.
right. Believe me, I know. That's why I moved here. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
But we do have, as a board, we're concerned with public safety and how it would affect public safety from that aspect, I guess.
The guy right here who's gonna
Yeah,
take care of it.
yes, he will. Are there any other people who would like to speak? Okay, then I will take the public hearing section of this meeting and close it at 6:46. Now we can discuss it as a board, what we think. I think we already have a warrant article written up, I believe.
Yes.
Because I'm in the belief that, I think I'd like to see the voters choose. I don't like to take things out of the hands of the voters. I have a history of that.
Nor do I want to run
yeah.
around and get 25 signatures.
Yeah.
See how it plays out.
And you know what? Either way, if voters vote it down, I'm fine with that. Voters vote it in, I'm fine with that. As long as it doesn't impact our citizens in the town in any negative way.
So I would think that we probably would want to wait at least till the 14th to give anybody in the town the possibility of wanting to present a warrant. And then if they don't present a warrant, then the board can decide whether we put it on the ballot or not put it on the ballot. But I think I agree with you. I think
I'm for putting it on the ballot
We
because-
definitely want to have,
them choose.
have the,
Put it on.
we definitely should want, if there's interest in the town, to have them present the warrant.
I understand your point, and until, we can always take a warrant, take it on or take it off until the last time we have to submit it to the DRA. I'm in favor of just, for now, putting it on and taking a vote. It could change when Francine gets back from her trip for next week when we have 4 selectmen. It can still change. Personally myself, I'm not going to say I'm in favor or not in favor of it, except that I'd like to see it as a warrant article so that people and the residents in the town can choose what they want to do, because that's just me.
Well, we can draft one and get it ready. just in case
Don't we
no-
already have a draft?
Right here,
Yeah.
in your package.
Yep, we asked for a draft already, right here. So if, because we have 3 board members here now, it's not all my decision. If somebody wants to make the motion and put it to a vote, then, now, the vote isn't whether I support it or not support it. The first vote would be whether we want to put it on the warrant article or not. Whether you support it or don't support it can be a separate vote. Because I think my 2 answers will probably conflict, so.
Do you have your copy, John?
No, I don't see it here.
Here, if you'd like to,
Did you see it?
Oh, okay.
So does the operation of sports betting establishments or something to that effect, that basically that's what we would really be sports betting is going to be available to the town whether we approve an establishment or not, or whether the state, but that's actually what we are asking the townspeople is to say, do you want a sports betting establishment in the town of Plaistow? Which is a lot different.
And as far as the public safety aspect, I'd like to ask the town manager just to tell us in public what he told me. Just the limited experience he's had with sports betting in the past as a law enforcement officer.
Well, the limited experience I have is 30 years. So, go ahead.
No, I want to say, so, in that aspect, not on the criminal, they're delivering you their money. If there's a legal sports operation, right, there is crime, but it's not Vegas, right? You're going to, like I said, a huge company. It's not Tony and his buddies who have $500,000 in cash in the safe out back, right? So, with that being said, it's interesting, and I would be not on the criminal aspect, which, there's crime at shoplifters at Home Depot and Walmart, right? But the aspect of revenue, income to the town, and what we're receiving to be able to have that influx of traffic, they're bringing you money to bet. So these industries, DraftKings, you have to put a prepaid amount in. They're not running you a credit account. So you're putting $500 in, they give you a $500 bonus, you get $1,000, and most likely you're gonna lose it, but that's income, right? So where is that gonna be distributed? And I think of it and see it as that more in that aspect than, someone coming in and holding up DraftKings because they have no cash there, right? Yeah. And that's where I'm really looking at it is what's the opportunity for us residents to maybe save on our taxes? Yeah. I don't mind the appraisal of my house. It's great. Yeah. But where is it going? And it's a lot of money we're talking about.
Well, we're
Look
on
at
the
Rhode
same
Island. If you see the dollar amount, you talk about $25 million.
Yeah, the public part of the hearing is over. We'd love you to come
Right,
up.
right.
But we're on the same page, just let you know that.
Right.
We're thinking the same things.
Okay, great.
And I just want to let the town manager answer what his experience with similar things in the past might have been.
So, for over 30 years, I watched betting at a horse track and the simulcasting. And there was cash, and there was some accounts set up, and there was visitors up to 10, 12,000 people a day. And over the period of the 30 years, there was a couple incidents, and I say a couple, you could count them on one hand, of any real crime that happened there because it was highly regulated, and depending on the crowds, they would have the appropriate coverage for security and police. And there was actually more crime across the street at the retail establishments on a daily basis for stolen cars and people breaking into cars and shoplifting and thefts. So there is no empirical evidence that there's more crime because you have betting on a site. And with today's technology, as this gentleman just said, a lot of this is you're setting up an account, so there's really no need to have large amounts of cash and so forth. So, and same thing with banking. So I don't think it's any more or less risk than a bank or anybody that has funds that they need to protect. So my personal opinion is, after 30 years of seeing this type of activity, albeit in another community and some other venues, there is no evidence to suggest that there's this major crime that's going to happen because you're allowing off-track betting or even simulcasting or even this right here, sports betting. What we do know is that there's sports betting that goes on that's illegal, and that happens, in a lot of places through, illegal activities. This would be a highly regulated activity that would be regulated by the state. So anything that happened out of the ordinary would be enforced through the state and the Gaming Commission.
I think it's pretty much the same. I got the same answer somewhat from the chief as well.
Yes.
So I just wanted to bring that up because I think that is a concern of citizens, so there's no history of that. Especially, I think you're talking about the Rockingham Park in Salem. I've been there when the horses were still there. It was kind of a shame when the horses went away because they were beautiful horses. But anyway, yes.
So my concern is not crime. My concern is introducing or promoting another form of addiction. And literally where I realize that if people really want to spend money on sports betting, they will.
Yeah, they'll go to Salem.
But basically, it's the idea of having an establishment within the town that encourages that. And I mean, we're basically, in the bill, it's talking about the necessity to take money off of the revenue to pay for addiction problems. So they already are expecting problems to already occur. They're going to have people who are spending their paychecks and whatnot. So that's my concern. My concern is not so much a crime issue, but are we introducing another addiction to our townspeople when, if they really want to bet, they could go to one of the 10 facilities, register, and then they could do it from home. They don't need to drive into Plaistow to be able to accomplish that.
Good
Well, then we wouldn't be saving anybody from anything because they can do it anyway, so we might as well allow them to do it, and
Well, they can do it. They
Yeah,
can
right.
do it, and they can do it, and the revenue will still come into the state, so that we don't have to have a facility in Plaistow for us to share in the revenue.
well, from what I read, it won't be, it'd be like Keno, it'll be at an establishment that's already here. And that allows that person to expand his business and make more money. So it is enhancing businesses like like Keno. And that's why we need to put it on the warrant, so people can decide.
Okay? I expect you.
All good
expect your
discussion.
opinion?
Now, again, I'm going to explain. The first vote will be whether or not we put it on the warrant, not whether you like it or not.
Right.
Okay? So if I get the motion for that first.
I'll make a motion to place a warrant article on the ballot that reads, to see if the town will vote to allow the operation of sports betting within the town pursuant to the provisions of New Hampshire RSA 287-1.
I'll second that. We've already had our discussion, I take it. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Aye. Those are not in favor?
Nay.
Nay. And no abstains, because no one's left. So the vote passes 2-0-1. That's just to put it on, doesn't mean we approve it.
2-1-0.
And I'd actually,
1-0.
yes, 2-1-0, sorry, you're right. And what I'd like to do is another vote on whether we recommend it or not, which is the part that goes on the ballot, recommend or not recommend.
Should we wait until?
We can revote when Francine gets
comes
here.
back,
We can
and then
revote.
will at least have
Just in
4
case
votes?
Francine doesn't come back or something, we just want it on the record. She might like it there
She's
so much, she
enjoying
might not
herself
come
so
back.
much, right? She's having such a great time.
We have the opportunity to re-vote approval
We do.
anytime,
We do, yeah.
even to remove it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All those are recommending it or in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those that are against it,
Nay.
and I'm going to abstain.
Okay?
Because this is a vote, I don't want to have my vote affect the people's vote. So, I have nothing against it. it's just I could change my mind next week, but at this point, I just don't want to have my vote affecting the people's vote. Let them decide what they want to do. I know that a lot of times people go to the voting ballot, and they see a 5-0 vote, so they automatically, oh, that must be good, and they just vote for it. They don't even read it. Sometimes people need to read the things to see what's happening and what they vote on. So,
So I might be a little confused. So is it going on?
yes.
Not going on?
At this point, it will go on the ballot, and it's going to go on with a recommendation of 1-1-1 at this point.
So-
1 for, 1 against, and 1 abstain.
Okay.
That's just the recommendation that's on the last line when you vote.
If you all
Yeah.
said nay, then it wouldn't have gone on at all.
It
Oh, yeah, it
can,
would.
it can.
Okay.
There's 2 points to putting a warrant article, whether we want the people to have a choice,
Right.
and then we have a personal, our individual recommendation. They're 2 different things. So it's possible to have, Budget Committee has stuff where they're voting more against than for. It doesn't mean it's not on the warrant article. So that's why voting's important. We like to see more people in Plaistow show up to vote, because actually, our numbers aren't that great for percentage of registered voters that show up to vote. Come out and take part. So I guess this issue is closed for now. Okay. Let's see. Now we're going to get to some fun stuff. Introduction of a new employee to our police department. And I'll let the town manager.
So tonight, there's actually 2. It's Brandon Thibault and Jonathan Campbell. We'll start off with Brandon. Brandon, could you come up and sit in the chair here? So Brandon currently resides with his family in Methuen, Mass. He's a graduate of Whittier Regional Technical High School, where he obtained an academic diploma as well as a certificate of completion in their electrical program. Brandon also has a Bachelor of Science degree from Rivier University in criminal justice. Prior to joining the Plaistow Police Department on December 18th, he was employed by Proscape LLC as a landscaper machine operator. So, Brendan, do you have anything else to add to that? You could introduce your family if you wanted to.
Yep. I'd like to introduce my fiance, Tiffany Radford, and my daughter, Paisley, my mother, Karen, my father, Mike, and my brother, Jake.
Awesome.
They're sitting in the back. And I think you covered it all in the bio.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, so now, you're officially now a member of our community, regardless of where you reside.
Yep. Exactly. Happy to be here. Excited.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Brendan, did we swear you in with the formal swearing in?
No, not yet. I have not.
Okay, so we'll have to do that on
27th?
well, the family's here tonight. Let me see if I can arrange that right now with, go down and get the town clerk.
Okay.
And then, in the meantime, can you just sit with your family and I'll go down there? So in the meantime, Jonathan, can you come up? And, would you be able to read this? And I'm gonna go downstairs.
Jonathan currently resides with his wife in Haverhill, Massachusetts. He is a graduate of Venice High School, as well as a graduate from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University out of Daytona Beach, Florida, with a bachelor's degree in professional aeronautics. Mr. Campbell also served in the U.S. Navy. Prior to joining the Plaistow Police Department today, he was formerly employed by the Portsmouth International Airport at Pease as an air operations manager. Jonathan, you have anything else that you'd like to add?
I had a full career as an FAA air traffic controller prior to that, and but I'm looking forward to this position. Everyone I've met has been very supportive and encouraging. It seems like you have a good group of people there at the police station, and like I said, I'm looking forward to the opportunity here. So.
Awesome. And is this your wife?
This is my wife, Allison.
Welcome, welcome to Plaistow.
She's a very encouraging person as well. So.
Awesome.
So, but
Terrific.
Thank you very much.
So what brings you to do this coming from aviation and aeronautics?
Well, in terms of, I have, there's some similarities, I think, in the aspect of as an air traffic controller, and I worked in the last portion of my career at Lawrence Tower and at Beverly Tower, but you're dealing with helping people. You're dealing with perhaps even some critical or crisis situations as they occur, and the use of radio and communication. And I think there's some parallels that can be brought across into dispatching, and you know, I do have the experience with radio and communication devices and such like that. So I'm looking to I get kids that are just finishing college, and you know, everything goes along with paying for college, and so help out a little bit with that. So, and they're spread out across 2 states and 1 country. I get four lovely daughters. So.
Awesome.
All right, so what'd you do in the Navy?
I was an air traffic controller on the USS Nimitz. So,
Oh, I've seen that one.
so, but that was all during the Reagan administration and starting out then. So, but so. A lot of aviation background stuff, but you know, like I said, I'm looking forward to this opportunity and working with great people and helping out this community. So
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll be called the bird farms, right?
there you go. So
Yeah, I saw it from a different perspective because I was in a submarine, so.
okay, so
Came by, they were looking up at it, coming in from
we were the
port.
target. We were the target as opposed to that.
Well, actually, we had different
Yeah,
issues.
I
but
understand. Thank you very much.
So,
Aviation's
welcome
exciting.
aboard.
Thank you, sir.
So we have the town clerk here that can perform the swearing in of Brandon with his family. So Brandon, if you can come up here, just stand up here by the chair, and the town clerk will swear you in. And then we'll get you the papers afterwards. And then we're gonna take pictures afterwards with the family and the board of selectmen.
I, Brennan Zero,
Do solemnly and sincerely swear
do solemnly and sincerely swear and affirm that I will bear
and affirm that I will bear
faith and true allegiance
faith and true allegiance
to the United States of America
to the United States of America
and the state of New Hampshire,
and the state of New Hampshire,
and will support the Constitution thereof,
and will support the Constitution thereof,
so help me God.
so help me God.
I state your name.
I, Brandon Debo,
Do solemnly and sincerely swear
do solemnly and sincerely swear
and affirm that I will faithfully
and affirm that I will faithfully
and impartially discharge
and impartially discharge
and perform all the duties
and perform all the duties
incumbent upon me
that come upon me
as a Plaistow police officer
as a Plaistow police officer
for the town of Plaistow,
for the town of Plaistow,
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
agreeable to the rules
agreeable to the rules
and regulations of this Constitution
and regulations of this Constitution
and the laws of the state of New Hampshire,
and the laws of the state of New Hampshire,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So what we do is we line up over here with the family, and we get some pictures, we get a picture taken. And Martha, can I just use that as a ceremonial prop? And then we'll give this one back. So, Brandon, we,
That's okay.
where's the little girl? What's her name?
Okay, whatever they want to do.
Paisley.
They didn't tell me, but I didn't.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Martha. Sorry about that.
Oh, the crow's nest I heard.
Oh, they have, really?
Yeah, that's what I heard. I haven't been there, but a long time. Someone told me that.
That's really in the area, is Mr. Mike's,
Yeah,
probably the most popular one.
But they're on the other side of the border.
Haverhill and, he's technically in Haverhill.
and I will admit, I don't play, I don't gamble at all.
Yeah,
But everybody I know that goes down there, they go down there just for that.
I know.
And they'll sit and they'll have a couple of drinks and eat.
Yeah.
And they'll spend 50, 100, 200 on candy. That's gonna be crazy.
Okay, we're back. All right, the next thing on the agenda is the default budget.
So did you want me to make a little bit of a explanation for the
Yes,
board?
please, on behalf of
Okay.
the accounting director.
So normally, the assistant town manager, finance director, Greg Colby, would be here. He was here today. He was sick. He stayed with me. We went over the default budget several times. I have the documents here, and I will make a presentation to you. But other than the fact that he went home sick and that he needs to be back here tomorrow and for tomorrow night for the final budget hearing, I told him to go home and that I would take care of this tonight. So normally, he would make a pretty in-depth presentation to you on the default budget, but I'm prepared to answer your questions if you have any. So before you tonight, you have a 2020 MS DTB, which is the default budget. And the substantive thing that you need to know is that according to the law, and it's somewhat up to interpretation, and it's somewhat ambiguous, and every town's different, and there's little nuances. What you need to know when you turn to page 4 or 5, if you can turn there, I want to direct your attention to something. That the number in the prior year adopted budget that says that it's 10,007,710 is the combination of last year's budget minus the water budget. And that the default budget for this year is the number in the right column of the 10,142,000. And if you subtracted out the 10,142,097, and you subtracted out the 157,444, which is the amount of the water budget, because the water budget, although it's included in this form for calculation purposes, is a separate warrant article. So when you're going to compare apples to apples, you need to understand that. So the default budget is a little bit less than the 10,142,000 if you subtract out the water. So I wanted you to be aware of that.
And the water budget did go up
And it did go up.
significantly from last year.
Well, it doubled. It
Right.
basically doubled because that's something that needed to be done because of the creation of a water enterprise fund.
So we're actually at 9 million something, 9.9 million.
Yeah.
But the water budget also has an income, which doesn't usually show up on the,
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to really go down that road because, we're just talking about the default number. So, these are the numbers that have reported to the state. And, if you look at what the, operating budget is for this year, the operating budget is going to be another number. So there's a lot of numbers. I just wanted you to be aware that 157,444 is the water budget. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if
So-
you have any right now.
What will go on the ballot? Will it be the 9.9 million, or will it be the 10.1,
Well, what's going to go on the
Point
ballot
one.
is what the final number is as recommended by the Budget Committee.
including the water?
No, because the water is a separate warrant article.
Okay, so that's what I'm confused about. The total that we're showing here, this is total
Correct. That includes,
budget of appropriations, but it's not the actual budget, operating budget that we're signing?
correct.
Okay. Got it. Were there any substantial increases from last year's budget that affected the final outcome of this year's default budget?
under the reductions and
Like
increases.
CDA
Carl.
or
If
something like that?
if you go through, so the ones in the parentheses are the reductions, and the ones that without the parentheses in the second column is the increases. So when you go to elections and the registration and vital statistics, so that increased because we have presidential elections coming up, and
Yep.
so that has to happen, and that is considered an increase that is in compliance with the law. The personnel administration was a decrease because we saved that in insurance went through the collective bargaining negotiation, so that's something that we could say is less. And consequently, there are other things that went up. So nothing, the police was an increase of 70, but that has to do with the salaries. There's really not a lot of other increases that are substantial. When you go to the water services, again, you got to remember that whole water article that you see there on page 3, if you circled that, you just need to understand that's the part that comes out of this whole thing for setting the default budget, because the default budget is for the operating budget, and it does not include the water. The next article is the water budget, and that has its own default.
Correct.
Okay? And so substantially, when you go down that whole column there's not a lot going on. With the ebb and flow of the increases and decreases, it's only a net difference of $114,000.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's the default budget. I believe the default budget is determined by what the law requires the finance to do. They're based on predetermined formulas, which sometimes change from year to year. So basically, the finance director had to use the guidelines prescribed. It's not a choice of, I want to do this or that. It's
Correct.
This is the budget as determined by the regulations within the law.
So let me just say this. We know that the 2019 budget, operating budget, is more than the proposed 2020 budget because we are in a negative 3.75% area approximately. So of course, the default budget is more.
Right.
Because last year's operating budget was more. So there should be no surprise to people that that number is more and not less.
Right.
Although we did make the necessary adjustments according to the law, and it wasn't that we took every figure from 19 and just said, that's the total. There were some things that we were able to reduce because of the law allowing us to reduce. So we did. For instance, that 75,000 from the personnel administration on insurance, because insurance didn't go up, insurance went down. So there's the 75 right there that we adjusted down. There's a delta of just over $100,000 that is the difference between at this point, and it's still not final yet because we're still doing the operation budget. But I can pretty much predict that the 2020 default number on the ballot is going to be slightly higher than the operating budget proposed for 2020. And normally, one would believe that last year's budget would be smaller, but we went the opposite way. We didn't increase the 2020 budget, we decreased it. So it makes sense that 19 number is higher with adjustments. So you're not here to vote on it per se tonight. We can get to that at another meeting, unless there's some kind of statutory requirement that I'm not aware of at this point. We can get to that later on when we get done with the actual operation budget and plug those numbers in.
Good.
Yeah, this is only a draft. I think usually, don't we sign this every year?
Yeah, when we get to the final,
Yeah, the
we'll
final.
do that.
So when we get the final, when the time period required by law, we'll be signing it.
So I only went to the lengths of explaining it in somewhat detail, and I know that you understand it, but for the people that may be listening at home, they have the benefit of having the paper in front of us, and so I try to talk to them that if they were listening and paying attention here and don't have the papers in front of them, to understand the concept that 19 budget was more, the 20 operation budget is less, so, and the default budget will be the opposite. It will be more in 2020 than the actual 20 proposed. So if there were enough people that voted against the operational budget in 2020, they could be voting to give more money to run the town. So, but there will, my opinion is there'll be people that will go into the voting booth to vote no without reading it, and I'm pretty certain that they're not voting to give us more money, but they will vote no.
One interesting thing I would note that the default budget for this year, after you subtract out the water budgets, is actually $7,000 less than last year's budget, operating budget.
Correct,
Yep.
correct. But it's more than what the 2020
Correct.
budget is because
Right.
of the,
Yep.
We're going in the opposite direction. So I think I've pretty much
you.
explained where we're at right now. A lot of work, and we'll keep on working on it.
Great.
Thank you. Safe routes to school closeout is next. I think Dee is here, patiently waiting.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am thrilled to announce that we are able to close out our Safe Routes to School project. The contractor has met all the requirements. Once hit off the checklist, it's been inspected by DOT as well as our project team from Hoyle Tanner. And once we accept the project, we still will have a one-year warranty on the project, so if anything happens to go sideways, we're still covered. And I just need to request that this board make a motion to accept the project. And I've taken the liberty of providing you with a proposed draft in the packet that I provided the board. And if you have any questions before you do that, I'm happy to answer them for you.
You ready for that motion, Julian?
I'll entertain the motion.
Okay, I move that the town accept the Safe Routes to School project identified as FedEx A004, parentheses, 363, close parentheses, and NHDOT 40312, which includes sidewalk improvements from Pollard School to 7 Elm Street.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
John seconds it. Any discussion? Well, I'll add one thing to the discussion. I was highly dissatisfied when they put sodium lights on a brand-new light pole. Oh, boy. Which we're now going to convert, but I don't think we have any recourse in that anyway, so. Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Abstain? Passes 300.
Thank you kindly.
See how easy it was?
Thank you, Dee.
All right, next thing on the agenda is the Safe Routes to School closeout. Excuse me, the warrant article for SCBA Fire Department.
So could I speak to that, Mr. Chairman?
You know I'm going to say yes. Go ahead.
You could say no, and I'll sit back. So the last information I gave to the board was before we had the actual numbers from the trustee of the trust funds on what the balance was. What we did find out is that the balance in the SCBA account is $200,000. And my prior information was that it was around $147,000. So I met with the new fire chief and the deputy chief, who was the interim chief, and we talked extensively about SCBA and this whole capital reserve fund, and asked about what their plan was. So what we found is that although there's a plan to put money away to save for a major purchase, we don't have an actual plan to say what the amount of the purchase is and how many units of the SCBA equipment is. So this year, in 2020, I've directed the fire chief to go back with his staff and to form a committee and to research the status of the SCBA equipment that they currently have and what they're proposing to make that purchase for. And then I would come back to the board, and then we would talk about funding for the future years. So at this point, it is the board's prerogative if you want to continue to fund it for this year for 42.4, or if you wanted to not fund it this year, waiting for a comprehensive plan from the fire department on what their plan is and how much to purchase and when they want to do it. So I'm neither advocating for or against. I'm telling you that that's the status. There doesn't appear to be anything in jeopardy right now. It was a plan to save money to make a purchase, and that in fact will happen, but we just don't know what that plan looks like in terms of how much equipment they're going to buy and when they're going to buy it. And then it is also a subsequent discussion on what brand to buy, because there are a couple competitors' brands, and the decision hasn't been made if they're going to go switch from, say, a brand that they have now to another one, and some compatibility issues. So before the board tonight is the discussion on whether you want to add a warrant article in the 2020 warrant for the usual amount of $42,400 or some other amount, or if you choose not to do it and wait for a plan in 2020 so you'll be ready for 2021.
How much we have in that account right now?
$200,000.
So there's no risk of being without SCBA at this point.
They could go buy the equipment, and in the agents to expend on that one, I'm losing that one. I'm trying to remember who's the agents to expend on that account, if it's the Board of Selectmen or if it's the voters. I forget.
I think it's the voters.
The voters, okay. So it's the voters, right? Right, okay, so the status is that If they don't have a plan now to make the purchase in 2020 to go before the voters, it's not going to happen in 2020 anyways. So there needs to be a plan to make the purchase, and that would go on to 2021 if they come up with a plan during the year of 2020, which I think that they can. So in other words, nothing's going to happen either way. You can decide to fund and add more money to it, or you could decide to not add more money to it and wait for the plan.
Was there any comment from our new fire chief on this?
The comment is that he would like to investigate and inventory and look at all the options and meet with everybody and come up with a plan and form a committee and come up with the plan so that we have a plan. And that plan would also help us with the capital improvement plan, because the capital improvement plan was a static $42,400, but in the 6th year, there was going to be a purchase of some equipment. Well, that 6th year was like 2020, but there is no plan before us. So, because this was established in 2015, when you count, it's not just simple math, because you go 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and the 6th year is 2020. So under that plan of the establishment of that warrant article was going to be a purchase this year. So you would add $42,400 and make a purchase like you save for a fire truck. But there is no plan.
And the current
now.
equipment they're using now is in good condition?
It's functional, and we have no issues that I'm aware of or he's aware of, or any issues have been brought forward that we're, at some kind of failing point right now. And obviously, if there was anything failing and it was a safety issue, we would take steps to do whatever we needed to do.
We could remediate with
Well, we
there was
couldn't-
one
we-
or two units that.
Yeah, well, we would have to find that money in other parts of the budget, or to have to use it from the contingency, because the voters are the agents to expend and not the board. So we couldn't touch that 200,000 that's there now.
No, I'm talking about.
Yeah, we would have to,
Be able
right.
to use.
Sure.
Some type of other discretionary
Sure.
spending.
So I'm going to ask the board for a consensus. That's good enough not to put it on there? Are you fine with that?
I'm fine with that.
Are you fine with that?
Fine with that, yeah.
And I'm fine with that, so we don't need to add it. We don't need a vote because we're not adding anything.
correct.
Okay.
But I
If
just
any
wanted to
new
make
news comes
sure,
up, please let us know.
just want to make sure that anybody watching, and there was a plan, and the plan was to make a purchase this year, but the plan never came to fruition, so it's not a jeopardy issue. We will get back to them when there's a plan, and, nobody is compromising public safety or the fire department or their breathing apparatus gear. But we need to do more work on it, and I've assigned the new fire chief to follow up with that and to report back with a comprehensive plan.
Thank you for that. Warrant article review is next.
Okay.
Have our new draft voter's
So-
guide with the warrant articles.
I kind of give you the really key things that we have changed. Basically, we have fixed the format so that all the warrant articles look the same. Recommendation from Sam Caficio to be able to have what the total appropriation is for every money warrant. So now all the warrants will have a line that says total appropriations, whether or not if they are using withdrawal money. Everyone will have a total appropriation so people know how much money is being pulled out. The second thing that we did to make things consistent is to include the majority vote, what it needs to pass the warrant. Now, I was under the impression that all of these, except one, is a majority vote.
But does it define here somewhere to the regular layperson what a majority vote is?
Yeah, majority vote is one vote over 50%.
Yeah.
Okay? So there was one motion that basically, and let me see if I get the right one here. It was the one that we're adding, here it is. It's on page 9, and it's P 2018. And the change that we are changing this trust fund wording is to appoint the Board of Selectmen as agents of the fund. So we thought this was going to require a 3/5 vote. When I went through the DRA suggested warrant article document right here, it basically states that if you are just adding agents to spend off of a warrant, that it is only a majority vote. So I did send that to the town manager and also to Greg Kobe, our finance director. And if they have any other questions or any other feelings about that, we still can change that. But right now, all of them will be a majority vote. Couple of really minor corrections in terms of the word withdrawal. We basically said, in one places, we would say withdraw, and in other places, we said withdrawal. So the suggestion was make it consistent one way or the other. So now all of them say the same way. They all say withdrawal. If you look on page 9, the motion to change the treasurer has an additional line that was suggested in the DRA guide. And though it doesn't really affect us, it's basically telling the taxpayers that if there is a person that's fulfilling that job right now, that they would stay on until the next election. So that section does not apply to us right now, but it basically is part of the concept of appointing a town treasurer versus electing them. So that sentence is an inclusion or an addition. And there's one other thought here. If you look on the recreation fund, and if I can find out which one it is, it's on page 7, and it's P 2013. Well over the majority, 7 votes against in the Budget Committee, and there was 3 against in the Board of Selectmen. And the comments at the Budget Committee, from what I remember, was basically, there is no specific plan to spend this money at this time. So they were basically not in favor of this at all. So my question to you is, would we want to consider holding off and not put this warrant on publish this warrant this year until after we have a recreation department head named and basically into the new year, and then we have some specific plan to be able to spend this money?
Well, if there was a choice, we could have reduced the amount, but I still like to keep it in the hands of the voters. I know we didn't all vote for it.
Right.
And even if the Budget Committee all voted against, that's their recommendation.
Yep.
But they may not agree with those Budget Committee members. But the other choice might be, if we don't have, if their comment is valid, we really don't know what we're going to spend it on, you could always reduce it and still put something in it. That's another choice. So I don't.
Will this come off their budget?
With this,
No, this is a warrant article.
This is raising taxes. They're raising
This is nothing to do with,
$25,000.
this is not the budget. This is just a warrant article to add to their CIP fund, basically.
Oh, okay.
And
So
they don't really have a plan
doesn't
for this.
affect, basically, we fixed that. We basically brought the level funding the department, and there's a couple of little minor adjustments that we made in different places to have them spend off of their, is it revolving fund? Is that what it's called, the revolving fund? It was like $40,000 in there, and we basically had a motion to be able to reduce that.
That
have them to spend
affected,
more.
that was the budget side of it, though.
Correct.
This is the CIP fund for future projects.
Right.
And they, like you said, they didn't have any plan of what they're going to do with the money at this point.
Exactly.
And it is more taxation, so I see arguments on both sides.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, when I just put, if it's okay, I'll put a motion to vote not to publish it this year and wait until next year.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Any more discussion? And like, I still like to leave it in the hands of the voters, but even if I voted against it, I'll recommend it. Well, if there's no other discussion, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Against?
Okay,
And I guess there's no abstains.
okay.
Just revote
Yep. We voted to take that off of
Voted to remove it.
ballot.
to remove it. And the vote was, so.
2,
Who made the motion?
1, 0. I made the motion,
And who made the
seconded by John.
Was,
2-1-0.
to take off.
Right. So the last,
Copy of that draft.
oh, you don't have it?
Oh, no, this is.
They giving you something separate?
Yeah, they gave me the first one.
They gave you the first one? Here, take mine. I have this one here. Do, 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 do. There you go.
Thank you.
So I would like to make a motion that we accept the minor changes to the warrant articles as well as the voters' guide that we discussed this evening.
I'll make that motion to accept the changes. Got to get one in there, John.
I second the motion.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay?
No against, no abstain. I was very surprised at the last budget meeting,
Oh, yes.
on all the no votes.
We were all very surprised.
I was actually, I'm sorry, I respect everybody on that committee, and I think they've done a great job. But some of the no votes, I just didn't understand why there were no votes. I didn't see the logic behind them. And if you just look at the votes now and here, if you didn't follow the meeting, I'm saying, well, how could they possibly vote almost a majority against some of these? And, like I say, I'm just in shock on some of the votes. I don't know where the no votes were coming from. And I was sitting there very carefully, just sitting and listening.
What-
And I agree on some of the points people made, but
Yep.
some of the people that voted no, I didn't even expect they were going to vote no.
There was two motions that they voted, that were in favor, which is the forklift and the truck bid, which they initially really complained a lot about first, saying we shouldn't
I
be
understand,
spending that money.
yeah,
And then we said, basically, there's a replacement cost for a vehicle, which is 200,000
Yeah.
versus 50. And they voted for both of those, you know, with significant majorities, and then other ones that were small amounts, they basically said, no, 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 no. So I was very surprised. I didn't understand what they were looking at. or what
sometimes
they
you
were-
got to, I understand the concept of trying to reduce this year's budget by these amounts. However, sometimes when you don't do it, you actually cost you more in the end because you're not taking care of the things that save money.
Right. Well, there was.
Like
there
the
was-
energy one.
Right, there was-
That always has come back in a return and paid for itself, yet why would you not do it?
There were motions.
But that was their choice.
There were motions that they did not recommend that were from the unassigned balance,
Yeah.
which doesn't affect the taxes at all. Doesn't affect how much taxes we have. It's basically our cash flow. So, again, there was obviously something previously discussed, because I didn't understand what it was, and it consistently was three people that were voting one way, and everybody else was voting the other way.
Yeah, I'm a cheap penny pincher, just ask my wife. But I just couldn't understand some of these votes. But that's the way it is. They are the budget committee and they are elected, so they
That's their-
vote how
their
they wish.
call. Yeah.
Any other discussion before we leave the subject of warrant articles? Okay. I had some other things on here.
Copy of my town minute.
All right, what's the agenda say? All right, since our agenda is almost to the town manager's report, I think there's some things we didn't do last meeting. For one thing, we did have a resignation of one of our board members last meeting. And what we didn't do, because it was sort of at the meeting, it kind of caught us all by shock, because I didn't know it was coming. We didn't actually accept the resignation, so I don't know if it's a formality or not.
Well, in the law,
Yeah,
this is what was required.
in writing.
To be submitted to the.
I understand.
Right, so it
I don't know
didn't,
if we had to.
It didn't
If
occur-
we should by procedure accept the
well,
resignation.
it didn't occur when Steve read this, it didn't occur. And so when I was reading through the law, it basically said he could have changed his mind.
Right, but I didn't see it in writing until later. Yeah.
Right, so once we have this, this is what's,
Yes.
the last little box that needs to
So
be.
then I would say it's official, I guess we don't have to accept it, because it was his choice.
Right.
And we do have it in writing.
Correct.
So it's a done deal then, and that. Which brings up another point, I was looking at the website.
Yeah.
And it was actually because I tried to call you and I couldn't get through to you.
Right, and so that's.
We need to
those-
make some corrections
those
on
are
the
being-
website.
Those are being taken care of, and I did not want to jump the gun,
Yes.
because basically if Steve said, no, I changed my mind, my house fell through.
That's taken care of, it's done
So I
deal.
wanted that to be,
But I
to
wanted to bring
occur.
that up for discussion.
And
so
now
were
we can.
Sure about
And
that.
now we can change that as well as on our agenda sheets. We can change the agenda sheets as well.
There was some things like, people had phone numbers on the website, but they don't, the phones don't exist anymore.
Right.
Like yours.
Right,
And also, I guess no one's going to be trying to call former selectmen now, so we should take that off. So people don't try to call someone, they may not be aware that he resigned. And I think
Well,
he's
did
going to
he
have a
turn
great
his-
time in Haverhill.
Did he turn his phone in or his tablet?
I don't know.
Did he turn anything into you?
No, he called and he said he was gonna bring them in, but I don't have them yet.
Is the phone, I guess the key?
Keys, fobs?
Yeah, I mean, he knows he needs to bring it all in. I haven't.
I leave that up to the town manager and Beth.
okay.
That'd be taken care of. First resignation on the board since I've been on the board, even though it's not been that long. The other thing was, since we now are short one selectman, this selectman also may have had committees they were obligated to. And even though we only have 2 months left, if there's anything, I had this put in your folders, the committee list, so that we have somebody to take his place for anything that may have been him responsible for. So if you look at Steve's, there were 4 items.
But the 3 of them are alternates,
They're all alternates. We should still have an alternate. So Public Works Facility, he was the rep.
right?
So we need a new person for that. I'll take it.
You have your hands full.
I'll take it. I know, but this, and then maybe we should call a meeting, because I noticed at the Budget Committee, they were saying there hasn't been a meeting since last year or something. We need to have one, but that's up to the vice chair now, I guess, I don't know. I think Sam Cafiso's the vice chair. So that's up to him.
Well,
But I'll take over as rep, so that somebody shows up when they have the meeting.
just a suggestion, Mr. Chairman. As far as the Public Works facility, it is substantially complete, and we're having an open house on January
Right.
25th and 26th. So if you wanted to have a meeting, I would just suggest respectfully that you do it on either 25th or 26th, and we'll be over there, and we'll have it there during the open house. It
not my
doesn't make sense
decision,
to
'cause
have
I'm
it
not-
someplace different.
I'm on it, I'm just not
Yeah.
in charge of it, so but I'll be the rep to it. We'll take care of that, and it's a good idea, because that was a big complaint on the Budget Committee, that, well, what's the plans? And nobody could answer the questions, except for you happened to be there, and you were the man with all the answers.
Yeah, no shortage of complaints.
Yeah. The highway safety, he's an alternate. Anyone else want to be? I'm the primary, so,
Yeah, I'll be the alternate.
okay. They have really had many, and they've been canceling the last few, so. But just to make it technical, you're now the new alternate rep for the highway safety. Planning board, he is the alternate. I'm willing to take
I
that
can take,
over.
I'll take planning,
You take planning?
Yeah.
Because I've been on it before, so I'm not going into a cold.
okay.
You sure?
And cable, I'm already the primary for cable, so
Is
I
that
can't
agreement with you,
take-
John?
I can't
Take
take that
The
one.
planning? Okay, that's fine by me. And cable, who's going to take that?
I can't take it, I'm the primary.
What is it?
Well, they have a
It's-
cable committee that meets
They
occasionally.
really, really meet. And they basically is how they use the
television programming,
television
things like
programming,
that.
Whatever.
Yeah, I'll be the alternate for
Yeah.
that.
Most of the time it's just impromptu discussions with people on that board.
Yeah.
They don't do anything formal.
And it's kind of something we did not do last year.
Right.
Or whatever, we didn't, previous years, they always had a little program explaining warrant articles. And it'd be the budget committee chairman along with the chairman of the board of selectmen would, and the town manager usually, they sat there and just went through each warrant article and made their explanation comments, kind of like an explanation voter's guide almost. So that people could watch on TV and see, well, this is the warrant article that's coming up, this is what it means. You know, what, yes means this, no means that, and keep it simple. And they would go through the whole thing. We didn't do that the previous year.
So it
Some people don't want to read, they just,
hasn't,
they'll watch TV.
hasn't been done consistently in the previous years?
All the previous years until the last year and the year before, all of a sudden it
And
just
it's,
stopped.
and it's the budget committee and the board of directors?
It was
board
always
of
the.
Selectmen that
it
do
was the-
that?
It was the chairman of the board of selectmen
Yeah?
and the budget committee chairman.
Oh.
And a lot of times it was the town manager, because the town manager has a lot of insight into what's
Yeah.
going on in the town. And it was basically, it didn't have to be long, it was just brief to explain to the people, this is what's on the voter, on the voting. We don't go through zoning and stuff like that, just the main ones. And this is what it's being voted on. This is kind of what it means. If there's a short explanation of what's going on, they can say that. It's their choice, and the public could watch it on the channel. And it's a lot easier to listen to a short explanation
that
and
again?
understand it than it is to,
Mark just says he doesn't have any plans to do that again.
well, you haven't done it yet. It hasn't happened since he's been on board. Or it could just be the two chairmen.
So the voter's guide, we've put a lot of effort to be as neutral as we possibly can.
Right.
And basically not have they call it an intent statement.
But people
I'm not
don't
really
always
sure
get it,
that
they don't
an
get on the
intent and a
internet, they don't, but they always watch whoever
purpose are
watches the
not the
stuff, they
same.
watch it usually.
But I could see that that being televised and just trying to explain it in your own words, it could be easily
Well,
assumed.
even if they just kind of read from
Well,
it.
let me finish. It could be easily assumed that you were swaying somebody this way or that.
Whenever we open our mouths, we sway.
I know, I know.
I mean,
Right.
there's an extreme, sometimes I think we go to too much of an extreme on that.
I mean, if you wanted,
People, well, then that's the plan, don't overtalk it.
if you took the
You can
verbiage,
stick with the voter's guide and
Right.
just slightly paraphrase or
if you
explain.
wanted,
but-
if you wanted to
Yeah.
cover the voter's guide on the TV.
Right. But don't leave it strictly just to read the word by word.
No, but, I mean, basically not say anything more than what's inside the voter's guide to explain, this is the sentence that we're using to describe.
And you gotta give them you have to give them a little leeway. I mean, it's informal in a sense, it's just to
You gotta
inform
be so
voters.
careful, you gotta be so careful not to, if you are for it or you're against it, to be able to use your own words on how you think it should be passed or not passed.
The two people that go, they have to understand, you're not supposed to push your agenda.
Right.
And leave it at that, and have some trust in our chairman, and
Well,
both chairmen.
as
Yeah.
soon as they read,
Yeah.
the board says 500,
Yep,
that's such a sway job.
it is.
It is
People
too.
just rely on that.
But way back, people wanted it that way, so that was voted on, way back to do
Part of
that.
it was that a lot of taxpayers, including myself, will read a warrant article and say, what are they talking about? Especially if it's a zoning
Right.
warrant. I have no idea what you're talking about.
That's why, so
Because they
you're-
don't explain it.
So you have to have the chance, you have two chairmen, let's say, and you just have to trust them a little bit
Yeah.
to just explain what it says in simple language. In people talk, let's put it that way, in people talk. Because everybody has different backgrounds. Voters come in, they want to understand what they're voting for, and sometimes they don't.
No,
And if they want to understand it, they will turn on the channel and watch it.
The worst thing in the world is uninformed voters.
Uninformed voters.
Correct.
We can't hurt nobody by telling them what's going on. We're helping them make a decision. It's still their decision.
Yeah,
They still vote yes or no.
right.
It's their
But
decision.
we're kind of helping our agenda. You can look at it that way.
Well, looking at this, we're not all 5-0 votes.
No, that's good.
I mean, we have all different
So you're
reasons.
going to leave this to Max and Francine?
Well, I'd like to see it happen again. I would want to have, approach Max and Francine, because it's always been a tradition, if they would like to do that. Under the understanding, they cannot push their agendas.
Yeah.
Just explain the facts. They can have a little opinion too, that's all right, because they're people. But don't go overboard pushing or going against, but just explain, this is what the warrant article is, this is what you're voting for, or
It's
this is what you're
present-
voting against.
See, I think it's
Yeah.
presenting the facts of the warrant versus trying to explain why we're doing it. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Once you start explaining why we're going to do it, I agree with John, you're kind of pushing them
Yeah.
in that direction. But if you basically say, here are the facts, and then you can decide.
Well, I'll just look this way, is anyone here against that?
No, but I just would
To do
have
that,
a
'Cause
word
we've
of
always had that, I've
caution.
always gone on TV and watched it myself before.
I'd have a word of caution to whoever is going to be presenting.
Well, I have seen in the past certain people push an agenda.
Yeah,
But
who's
it
gonna
was
present
it was overdone, let's say, put it that, it was overdone. But just to have it go away was also not a good thing either.
But who's gonna present it?
I would say the chairman of the Budget Committee, chairman of the Board of Selectmen. That's the way it's always been. Comes with the job.
So let's table that until
Chairman, you got
Francine
executive
gets
committee's gotta
back.
do it. But yeah, the understanding is not to push or go against the votes, and don't argue about the votes of the different committees. Stick with just the warrant article. This is what you're voting for, this is what you're not voting for.
Well,
It's like the truck, it's like the
This the
truck thing.
final copy?
You can say in that thing, it says, well, you have a choice. You could spend $50,000 to put a bed on it, or you can buy a new one. You still have a choice.
Well,
You might say, I'd like to have a new one anyway.
you have the people that say my taxes are too high, I'm gonna go with the lesser amount.
That's why they vote. That's why most people
But
vote.
that's, of all the warrants, that was probably the best example that you could give.
Yeah.
Basically, there were some people saying, you shouldn't put the cost of a replacement vehicle.
But then
at
you have no
200,000.
perspective on why the 50.
I get it. But I'm just saying, there were some people who were really upset about that. And I'm saying, that's a fact, not an opinion, it's a fact.
It's a
And
fact.
they questioned that as well. And
You
we
know
said,
what?
no, that is really the market price of one of these vehicles.
But guess what? This is our voter's guide. We're trying to,
I get
we're
it.
taking a responsibility
Right.
upon ourselves to try to inform the public.
Right. So I would be for providing more facts about the warrant articles and less intent or purpose of why we are doing it.
Facts are good.
Like, for example, if you vote for this, this will happen. If you don't vote for this, this will happen. You're not making an opinion.
That's
You're not
exactly what I'm
making a-
saying.
Right.
I think that John will agree.
Yep.
Common sense guy.
Is this pretty much all set, though?
Yeah,
That's what's.
Yeah.
Oh, there isn't. There's one more thing.
we need to.
Last meeting and meetings before, there was a discussion about whether we should or shouldn't vote on that citizens petition.
Oh,
Or the last warrant article.
yes, you're correct.
And according to the New Hampshire Municipal Association, and I knew I was right, but nobody would listen to me, because I've gone through this discussion years before. But I went again and made made the phone call to get it
Yeah.
verified. The Board of Selectmen vote on all the warrant articles.
All
It's a
warrant
recommendation, not not whether it goes in or not. And a citizen's petition as well, you do your recommendation, or yes or no. And the Budget Committee must vote on anything that has a monetary output from the town's funds.
So they need to vote on it as well.
The one that was asked, that was the citizens petition, has to be voted on also by the Budget Committee, because it is spending town's money.
So we have,
Next Budget Committee, they have to vote on that.
okay, we have the warrant article. Do you want to vote on that right now?
Yes. John?
Is those donations, is that considered town money?
No, because it's not taxpayer money.
Right. So,
Wait.
Well, that's as far as the Budget Committee. The Budget Committee is restricted to only town, warrant articles that spend town's money. So the Budget Committee only gets to vote on the warrant article for the elderly donations. No, only for the one that's donating to, was it SOROC?
The SOROC.
Citizens petition, yeah.
The SOROC is taking tax money,
Yeah, so the Budget Committee has to vote on that,
and we need to vote on that.
and we need to vote on that.
We have not voted on it.
The Budget Committee does not vote on the elderly exemption because there's no taxpayer money involved.
Okay, right.
That's the only difference. We vote on everything, but the Budget Committee only votes on those things that spend town money, taxpayer money.
Is it proper that we put that warrant article in the voter's guide?
Absolutely.
Okay,
It should all go in there.
okay,
If they're voting on it,
all right.
let them see it. Well, you're not going to hide it.
So do we all vote on our recommendations of that?
Yes, and again, we always can re-vote after, but, let's vote on the warrant article for the citizens petition. We all know it's for the donation to I guess it's the,
$7,000 or something, or almost $8,000 for every person in the town?
it's basically to help kids and whatever, work with their problems. Trying to keep it in general for now, without reading the warrant articles. That's not in the voter's guide yet.
No, it is not.
It should be. It is being voted on. So it should be. I'm sorry, all those in favor, say aye? For the SOROC
That recommends it?
donation? That
Okay.
recommends it.
Okay.
All those in favor, say aye? No ayes?
Now, this is, what do we appropriate,
All right.
1,000?
I think it was 7,000
Yeah, it's 7 now?
It's $1 per
per
resident,
resident, which is also in the other
which
towns.
is close
too.
to $7,800.
Yeah, and that's
I'm
basically a social
concerned
service.
for the amount of
to our
money that
community.
we're providing other similar organizations, we're providing them a lot less than that in this current budget.
Okay.
And if they would want to be part of that process, then they should be going to the Human Services and be put on that list and have money be appropriated for them like any other organization that's servicing residents of the town. Do you understand what I'm
understand.
talking about?
I understand what you're talking about.
Like Vic Dairy Center as an example,
We
okay?
donate to them, but it's.
We
done
donate to
through the
them because
Human
they are actually
Services.
providing services to people within Plaistow.
Well, the money we appropriate to them, does some of that go to
It goes to them with no bars, no, it's not done by resident, it's just, it's not done by, how can I say that?
so they can give it to anybody?
They can
don't
give
have
it to
be a
anybody,
Plaistow resident.
exactly.
And that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, when we got other people in town that could probably use it.
I agree.
That's just my opinion.
So I'll vote nay.
It's like me being in business, and somebody wants a donation from me, and I get people from all over the different states looking for donations. I stick right in Plaistow now.
Right.
Okay, that's our opinion then, but that's still not, the voters get to choose because it was his
Right.
petition. But yeah, I understand your point. Maybe they should do it like the Vic Geary Center. I don't know, Vic Geary Center, I don't think, was it originally a warrant article or not? I don't remember, because I was not
There were-
around back then.
No, I don't believe they were warrant articles, they basically apply for that role.
I think it just went to the Board of Selectmen for the budget.
It may have gone through the Board of Selectmen, but I know, I think it went to the Human Services.
Remember that's been around a while?
Human Services?
Before my time.
The
Yes,
different
before my-
organizations that
Yeah, those
receive
things were
money
already in place when I came on board.
from Human Services.
I'm not sure. Steve thought the first time any new organization came around, it went on as a warrant.
Oh, right.
warrant article.
The
Could-
very
First
first
time.
time, correct.
I'm not 100% sure
All
if
right,
that's true.
as
And then
town
after that, they
manager,
become part of the budget.
could you find out for us through Human Services how the other people got on those lists, whether they have to have a warrant
There's a
article or
warrant,
not?
there's a warrant article to get on the list, and then the following year, you're part of the budget, part of their budget. And that's the path that I would recommend if they are servicing people within Plaistow, that they would go through that as well, and then be dispersed money based on the number of people that they are.
So isn't this the warrant article to get on the list?
No. This is basically give us $1 per resident, and we're gonna bring it
Once you
into our
pass it,
coffers.
once you pass it, it carries over every year.
No,
This warrant article,
no,
it doesn't? This is a one-time, 1 year? That's not right?
absolutely. This is basically, they're coming saying, they're putting this article to say they want $1 per resident to go into their coffers.
But does the warrant article end at the end of the next year?
Yes.
I don't know about that.
Oh, I thought it was I thought it was.
It sounded
Thought
like
it
it
was-
was, once you
thought
put
it
it in,
was
it
every
stays.
single year?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
a permanent warrant article?
Yeah,
Is that how you interpret it, town manager?
I
One with the legal
don't,
mind?
I don't know their intent, because I didn't ask them the question.
Yeah.
But that is a question we should ask them, because they are doing it in all the other towns. So all I can say is they're asking Plaistow just as well as everybody else around us. So we'd have to follow up with asking them if their intent is that this would be funded annually since they did this. But as I understand it, the process has been in the past for these organizations that they are a warrant article the first time and then they become part of the budget. So this may end up doing that by default because that's what Plaistow has decided to do.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they're gonna ask for the same warrant article year after year in the other towns. I don't know that.
And whether it's gonna be a different amount.
Well, that would be, they're tying it to the population.
I'd like to get the legal opinion on that, but we can still do our vote.
Yeah. Nay.
Nay?
Nay.
Nay? Well, after this discussion, I'm gonna say nay too.
Okay.
The budget committee will have their vote when
You
we
wanna
meet
keep that,
next
get
too.
that to Greg, so, and you're
I'd
gonna
still like to
put
get a
that
legal,
article on.
can we get a legal opinion by next meeting on how this works? Because I'm not really sure.
I think
This
if you,
passes,
I think
does it
if,
go to all perpetual, to forever, or is it
if you
just
ask,
for 1 year?
if you ask Laurie, you could have a
should know that.
conversation with Laurie, and I think she would have the knowledge to be able
Yes.
to answer that
We
question.
need to do that before next meeting. Okay, sorry about that.
Julian.
Yes.
Question. In regards to Steve, wasn't he doing some action items?
I thought we,
We'll cover that on the when we get to the town manager's report, we'll look at the
Okay.
action item list. You're right. And there's also another thing, I'll bring it during my selectmen's report. Let's go on to the town manager's report.
So I listed on the front page all of the meetings that I had, and that probably doesn't cover all of them. I try to get as many as I can on there. So I met with Keith Pratt and Gene Forbes from Underwood Engineering on Thursday, January 2nd at 10 a.m. We ate for 3.5 hours to go over the next presentation. And then we actually met up again to go over the presentation again. Actually, we set up a meeting for the 15th or 16th this week to go over it again. I've just had so many meetings with the water, I'm getting confused now. So, the good news is we felt that there was a lot of work that needed to be done when we had our original meeting, and that's why we set up another one before the 27th, because we're really getting close to giving you the meat and potatoes for you to make decisions on water rates. And I think what you're gonna see is a tiered type approach. That would be that with this many users, you should consider this rate. With this many users, you should consider this rate, and this many users, you consider this rate. Because if we ask you to make a decision as a number that will work, it doesn't work for across the board. It is tied to the amount of users to come up with a valid number that we can defend. And that is a work in progress, but at least we can get you closer to what you want to do, is set some rates, because the other question out there is from people, well, are you interested? Well, it depends. How much is it gonna cost me? So we're trying to get there, but don't forget, this is really difficult to do, trying to predict. But we're gonna work on a model for you. That's why we're putting a lot of work into it, and I'll be meeting with them again this week. The second thing I wanna bring up with respect to water is that there is a letter in your folder from Underwood that they drafted it with my permission to send it to the Atkinson Board of Selectmen. If you remember, we went there in December. The response was, we'll take it under advisement, we'll get back to you. Well, it's now the middle of January. So we took a proactive approach. We consulted with DES, and we need an answer. Yes or no? We need an answer. So that's what that letter is. It's, 1.5 pages long.
And you've heard nothing from?
Nothing.
Nothing from Atkinson?
Nothing. So we're trying to get an answer. Now, it doesn't mean I could force them to give me an answer, but in the alternative, if we don't have an answer in the affirmative, then we'll just assume it's a negative. But we got to move on. And moving on means we're going to just shift gears and we're going to make plans to put the pump station within the easement that we already have. We knew we could do that. We were asking for something that would have been less
Impact on the
less
land.
impact on the environment.
Right.
But we can't make somebody do something if they don't want to do it. So we followed up on it, and that's all I can do.
So they haven't actually given this answer yes or no, so I guess we assume it's no.
They have not. But that's why we followed up on January 7th.
Yep.
I don't know if they'll respond or not, but we're, again, I don't want to repeat myself. We're trying to get an answer. But maybe they're not going to give us an answer. New highway garage, metal shelving for the mezzanine in the garage has been set up. We have OSHA rolling ladders that are being modified for safety purposes, so you can go up into the mezzanine, and that is safe. We did a final testing for the fire alarm, and with the fire department and the fire alarm people, and a certificate of occupancy was issued. The well test came back. The water's not drinkable. We ordered and installed 2 water coolers. The chairman asked me tonight what were the contaminants. We only tested for the basic water test, and that came back with that it's not drinkable. The second question was, well, we're in an area where MTBE is, and we did not have it tested for MTBE. However, we are a property owner. The DES will do some additional testing and tell us if we're MTBE or not. It's really a moot point because when we put the fire suppression system line in there, we teed off of it when we were out there doing the work and put a shut off, and we have a copper line running into the building. So there is no additional trench work that needs to be done if when potable water comes. We've already got the pipe in the building. We just have to attach it. So,
Are you planning to use the well for anything?
yeah, we plan on using the well to wash the trucks, so we're not paying so much a cubic foot to wash trucks.
Got it.
So we're not gonna be redigging up pipes. So the whole theory of the state paying for trenching in to connect you to potable water becomes a moot point.
Right.
The town crew sealed the large garage floor with salt sealer. That was something I felt that they should do in-house instead of hiring a crew. We had a price that was rather expensive, so instead we went out and bought the actual product, and they sealed it. And I wanted them to be familiar with how to seal it in the future, and they'll do it periodically. So that was done by the crew. They're doing a lot of work in-house in between some of their other duties. They're starting to move in some tools and equipment into the garage this week. The shower curtains were installed in the locker rooms. The locker room dividers were ordered. The electric heat was installed in the utility room, and I worked with the guys to install the plywood on the walls in the garage and building workbenches and so forth. The remaining items are the kitchen cabinets, which I put off as a last thing that I'm gonna do, which is we have to install the sink. We have 2 appliances already there. They were donated. I actually donated them. And we have to mount the TV in the conference room, which I didn't buy yet, and outfit all the little things. So it's an ongoing process. So I actually told Dan that today he could start, because we're moving stuff out of the bays from all the working that we're doing, he could start moving some equipment in, and he'll start doing that. So the intent is we'll have a fair amount of the equipment in the building for the time of the open house. I don't plan on putting every single piece in there if we want to have a little space for the open house, but we'll have most of the equipment there. Substantially, the building is done. We're going to keep on fitting it up. And I hope that people from home, remember that January 25th and 26th, there's an open house at the new Public Works garage. And any food or things over there that are expenses have been donated by John L. Carter Sprinkler Company. They donated $750, and we'll use that to have some beverages and some food and some different things there, but it will not be any town money. It's a donation. Asset management, clean water, state revolving fund grant of $30,000. We met at the highway garage. We had a large group of people. We were interested in a pre-bidding, pre-proposal meeting, and they're going to be turning in their bids. And we're working with Attorney Kalman on issues related to this work and the MS4 permit. We still have some outstanding issues that we want to talk about. I have a meeting with Attorney Kalman tomorrow afternoon. So I will keep on following up on that. And it just centers around making sure that the town, you know, it's due diligence, making sure that the town is not doing something that's going to open us up to more
Litigation or?
more scrutiny or more compliance issues. What we're trying to do is we're doing everything we've been asked to do, and we're trying to use this asset management to comply with the MS4, you know, small permit. And, you know, there's a fear out there that by doing this, then we might be bringing some kind of attention to ourselves. But the fact of the matter is, we're doing everything right. We're doing everything that we're supposed to do. We're following the permit, and this allows us to do more work on the permit. So I actually think the opposite, that we're just in better standing with New Hampshire DES and EPA. But there's a couple lawsuits out there, and there was just some concern. So we're following up on the concern with the attorneys and some litigation that were filed by a different group out there. So I know you're looking at me like, what does that mean? We've had all the legal people looking at it, and we're trying to get to the bottom of it. And it's a little bit confusing, but we're following up on it. The proposed salt shed RFP, I'm going to decide, since the Budget Committee has taken a negative position on the salt shed, I'm going to hold off on focusing my time on drafting an RFP. Because they have shifted gears now, and they're not supporting the concept of a salt shed.
Not up to them, it's up to the voters.
I know it's up to the voters, but it's a little bit of a shift in gear. I have to focus my time on things that, you know, are headed in, you know, somewhat of a positive direction. We've scheduled some meetings with the chairman, Jim Hanley, Charlie Zilch, and a few others to go over the final design and engineering plans for the softball, the improved field drainage, and the trail access at Park. So they need direction, and I forwarded the latest email to the Recreation Commission in December. So I think sometime this month they're going to meet. Public safety road and cemetery expansion, we're still waiting on all of the RFP and all the specifications, and I want to get that out and have that ready to go for this year. The money's in escrow to do the road. That's not an issue. We need to get that going, and I want to, you know, get that going. Timber Lane Rear 2017 tax sale of the land was completed. The first week in January, the town received the funds of $110,000. That's going to be a unanticipated revenue for 2020.
How was unanticipated revenue
Because we didn't know when it was going to come in.
How is it brought into the budget? Is it
Just goes on to.
spendable, or is it?
No.
No?
It just goes into unanticipated revenue. We come up with a number that we think we're going to get in 2020, and that may go up or down, it's a guess.
Right.
Registrations and other things, you know, that we know about are coming in, we can look at a trend, but this just comes in as extra money that we didn't anticipate. We didn't know when this was gonna actually happen. We had an idea, but we thought it might happen in December, but it didn't happen in December, it happened in January, so it's on this side of the equation.
So you're not really answering the question. I guess I'm not asking it right. This money is coming into the town. What can it be used for?
Nothing.
Nothing. So that doesn't make any sense. What does that
Going
mean?
into the general fund, unreserved fund balance
Oh,
as a
okay.
revenue.
Then that's the answer. That's what I was looking for.
Right.
So it's going in as unassigned,
General fund, unassigned fund balance.
okay, now I understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
I'm sorry that I didn't
So
understand
anytime that we have
question.
revenue, is
Yes.
that the same place where it goes? So if we get,
Yes.
okay, I wasn't aware of that. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, it says it right there, the 2020 anticipated revenue, so it's the unreserved fund balance. I probably should have said that. And same thing with the Garden Road. They dropped the check off in 2020.
Nice.
So we don't know exactly what that amount is. We're still working on it, but between the 110, we think it might be 50, so that's 160 that's going into that unanticipated revenue for 2020. And it will be in the general fund, unreserved fund balance. So anytime we have revenue coming in, it always helps us because we're making a prediction, and that is something we're counting on to come in because we're raising the other funds from taxation, so there's a balance there. But it can't be used for anything until, that's just going into the big pot.
Right. And so we either utilize it for projects or we utilize it to pay taxes down.
Right.
Those are the only two real things that can be
Correct.
spent for.
Correct. Laurie Grigg and I met with Systems Engineering, who performed an IT security assessment. I'll be bringing that information to the board in a future meeting in non-public to report to you the status of our information technology and our security assessment that has been completed. I scheduled a staff meeting for Wednesday. We're working on, we have interviews scheduled for Thursday, January 30th for the part-time administrative assistant at the fire department. We don't have anybody for that part-time public safety dispatcher, although we had interest from a candidate that was contacted us in December. The full-time public safety dispatcher was before the board tonight. You also swore in a police officer tonight. That means that we have 2 unfilled positions. So we are making some progress on filling positions. So 2 police officers, the most recent 2, the one here tonight and the previous one that we swore in, are scheduled to go to the May Academy. So we'll have 2 police officers in the May Academy. The other one before that was already certified, so he's on the street, and he did the academy years ago. So we're gonna keep on filling positions. Human Services, we're still working on that. That's something that's ongoing, and we're gonna, look at the budget in March of 2020. We're gonna try to figure this out. Laurie cannot keep on doing that amongst her other job duties.
Right.
Recreation Director vacancy, we've advertised it between 32 and 40 hours a week. So that's in process. So the list that I used to have has substantially been reduced down. This used to fill up a whole page, and
Yep.
we're making some progress.
That's good.
You just got to stick with it, and you got to try to fill positions. I mean, I can go back to that full-time public safety dispatcher. We gave out a conditional offer. The person accepted it. We were all set, and at the last minute, the person walked away. So then we had to go back to do it again. So we have a good candidate tonight, and I'm very glad that he's here. I didn't have a real big opportunity to talk to him, but I did review his package. He comes here with a ton of experience.
Great.
That is great, because he's been in that type of situation before, with being an air traffic controller and so forth. It's a natural fit, and that's what we're looking for, is people like that have experience.
It'll be a lot less testosterone now.
I think so.
What town does he live in?
I don't remember. It's in his bio, though. Was it Haverhill?
I think it was Haverhill.
Yeah.
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 Oh, I want to say it was Haverhill.
Said he was in the tower at the Lawrence Airport, too.
Yeah.
Nice little airport.
So we're very busy this time of year. The budget consumes us. I've got meetings tomorrow. I got a pending issue with a code enforcement issue. I'm going to be swearing in somebody as a temporary code enforcement officer because our current code enforcement officer is out on medical leave. I have to have a chief building official and code enforcement issue for a compliance issue that's ongoing in town. I'm going to be involved in legal counsel. It is going to be a cease and desist order, and we're going to take action to stop some illegal, it's illegal because it's against the law activity with respect to a building and some work that's being done on buildings without the proper permits and not following the code. And it's a safety issue, so we're gonna make sure that that's done. So I'll be very busy tomorrow with that and all the department heads related to that. So we will have a per diem person on board tomorrow to help out with the building inspections for the time being. And sometimes we have to just shift gears, and I have to get somebody on board. We can't go 6 or 8 weeks or 12 weeks without having somebody. It's nice to think you can, but you can't.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, so, but there's no money in the budget, per se, you know, I mean, there might be a swap off if there's a offset where, the person out on medical leave, maybe it's a different pot of money, but, my point is that, I always wanted to have a succession plan, and I wanted to have somebody ready to go, but, the budget didn't allow for it, but now I'm forced into doing it. I can't not do it, I have to do it, so I will be doing it. So I'll let you know if there's any budget ramifications.
Okay.
Okay, the action item list, I don't see anything there that needs to be addressed right now.
We can take 2 off, though.
What do you mean take it off? It's just,
Done.
this possible sale of town-owned land, this is not past properties, this is.
Oh, that's
considering-
what that.
That was the past properties.
Oh.
Those are properties that were sold a couple of years ago.
Oh,
This is possible sale of town-owned property if we're gonna have another auction of some type to sell.
oh,
And that was put off until April. And the requester is still the requester, it's not the person responsible. So, and to address your comment earlier. I don't know what we have for town-owned land right now, except for one I can think of. That's not till April, when we have a new board. That we don't have any real use for.
yeah.
No use holding it, get it on the tax rolls and make some use of it. So, I think the only thing that was
Is there a
taken
lot-
off the list last time was
Is there a
the,
lot of land that the town owns that is
actually.
in that
there-
category?
Look at the town report. We do own quite a bit of land.
Really?
Yeah, there's quite, it seems like there's quite a bit.
Yeah.
But let me just say
It's
this,
acquired over years because of, tax things or whatever over the years.
so you may see a long list, but that list was gone through, I think, with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah.
And it was put into categories of land that, when you talk to the Conservation Commission, they had a recommendation to keep for those reasons. And then there's some other property that, although the town wants to sell it, it is just undesirable for anybody to buy it, and it is somewhat wet or somewhat poorly drained, and, there's a piece up by the YMCA, and we put it up for auction, and there was a bidder, but then the bidder backed out, and it's relatively unusable land.
Not usable, right?
So when you look through the list has been vetted. There may be a piece or two.
Yeah, I know the
that-
Hailspring
that last
property
time
was on the list before, and then it was
that-
taken
that
off.
came up.
And it is
that-
buildable.
That was not put on the list for some reason. There's personal preferences by Board of Selectmen, there's personal preferences by the Conservation Commission. So although the list is big, it's not, they really did sell, we put up a lot of property for sale. And don't go just strictly by the list that you have that many pieces of property, so all of a sudden we have property that can sell, because there was really a large effort and a large vetting process. And when you did the process of elimination, there really wasn't that much land to sell, but for 1 or 2 pieces that I can think of right now. So
Well, if it's the 1 or 2 pieces, it's the 1 or 2 pieces.
yeah, it's a lot of work, although I did pick up the pieces on 33 Garden Ave. We did that, we expedited that fast, we got that done. The problem going forward is, and I would just caution the board, that there needs to be the due diligence on the front end, because we're running into problems with the past record keeping of property. And this property here took 2 years before we could actually finish the sale of a piece of property. We had no records that were valid and had to go to court to clear the title. And we spent a large amount of money on legal fees. So rather than going into it blind, I'd rather go into it with our eyes open. If we have a piece of property that doesn't have the proper records, I wouldn't be so anxious to say it's going to be on the tax rolls, because it may not be.
We just need to do those checks.
There is a
before we put it
property on Rose Ave in town that we're waiting for the 3-year clock. And when the 3-year clock comes, that means we can keep all of the proceeds. So we are watching that closely, and then that is a good one, because that could bring in, and that has better title, that could bring in $250,000 or $300,000 and then go back on the tax roll. So there is a couple. But we're keeping our eye on it, and, you know, this Garden Ave one, my opinion was, and the reason why I expedited it is, we were gonna be on the hook for maintenance fees and condo fees going into the future, and we needed to get out from underneath that and turn that around, which we have. So, there's not a lot. And if you're looking for more work for me, I don't need more work.
I think it's just the ones like you said, and the Hale Spring one possibly, because that was a buildable property, which is just sitting there. And the spring can't be, it's not drinkable. So.
Okay.
Okay, then we'll move on to Selectmen's reports. Everyone got the signature folder and everything?
I haven't signed anything yet either.
Keep all this stuff in the folder already. All my notes are
All right, go ahead, Greg, you first.
I've been spending all my time on the warrant articles and the voter's guide and trying to get balances from funds. One of the observations I made is that we are not very consistent in what we are calling in these funds compared to what they are on the warrant articles and what everybody else calls them. So I had a couple of, 3 or 4 of them, that I wasn't even sure I was picking the right balance, and I requested from Greg and Mark and Francine, if they knew which one I was supposed to pick, please tell me. I think we can do some reasonable abbreviations, but it would be really nice if we used the standard name for the warrant article whenever we're referring to them. Just a personal thought on that. So, and I attended the regional development meeting where they had representatives from the governor's office, as well as one of the Democratic representatives that's on this committee to put forth this bill to try to encourage and motivate residencies for, how do they call it? Workers?
One is workforce housing.
Workforce housing.
It also includes regular
Right,
people
which
need a
is
place to live.
basically not, it's not low-cost housing, it's basically providing housing for the people you're bringing into town to work. So whether they are working at a low job, a medium job, a very expensive job, having the necessary property for them to be able to live in town is important. So that's kind of there was a lot of discussion and there was a lot of input, and one of the key things you got is that every town in New Hampshire seems to be so different. Some towns have a lot of opportunity for this bill, and others, it's never ever going to happen. It was pretty amazing.
I think one of the things is New Hampshire overall has a housing shortage for people to live, period.
Correct.
And it to be affordable. I think some of the towns you're talking about, there are people that, everyone can't afford a $750,000 to $1 million home,
Right.
which is a lot of the ones in some communities, that's what they are,
Like
here at the
Hampton.
beach.
Right.
And also, I think one of the big things is they were looking at is they were talking about planning boards and them to be properly trained and the issues when they're not trained. And also the tax incentive financing, which has always been in the past, only applied to businesses. Well, they're saying, well, why can't we have tax incentive financing for residential properties? So if someone wants to make a condominiums or senior housing project, whatever, that hasn't been available in the past, which enables them to be able to build a project. One thing, you have to find builders that are willing to build. It isn't just a matter of allowing it. So there's, and you have to have the right land and the facilities and sewage and water or whatever might be involved. But basically, it's to incentivize a problem that New Hampshire has had for a long time, but it's nothing from the state level to aid to correct the problem. Let's put it that way, has it been in law?
Did you get
Just obstacles.
from the presentation and from the feedback from the people that were at that, 'cause There was, what, at least 30 or more people that were there.
And we had a lot of state reps that normally aren't at those
Did you
meetings.
get the impression that this thing has an ice cube's chance in a warm area that will actually pass? 'Cause
Well, I
'cause
think the governor
it
intentionally-
It sounds like they've tried this before.
Well, they've
and
had the
it's
workforce
pretty difficult
housing-
to get it passed.
They've had the workforce housing group has existed for a couple of years now, that extra organization. Now, I think his intention was, he did assign Democrats to use, because he's the Republican governor,
Yep.
to be on that so that it would have something that would stand a chance in some place to pass. Because, and he tried to come up with a diverse group of people from different political views to come up with something that will actually pass and work. 'Cause that's what my impression was. It wasn't a one-sided committee. Matter of fact, it was actually a little bit more to the other, opposite side.
Right.
Because actually, it's difficult to get something through, because unfortunately, it's infected our state as well, where politics rules the mind rather than common sense. We want to see, I don't know, as a New Hampshire resident, I want to see results, not squabbling.
Right.
Do something that makes sense, that serves all the people the right way, and go there. I don't care what party you're with.
It
yeah.
doesn't work out that way today.
Yeah.
People take the sides and that's it.
Yeah.
Nothing gets done.
Just do what's right. That's all. Just like we do with Selectmen. We don't play with parties and Democrat and Republican and Independent and whatever you want to call it. I like the fact that our local boards are not based upon primaries and parties. Because
That
we
would be
get,
interesting,
we
wouldn't it?
get a good set of people together and we work for the common good. And I'm proud of this board right now as we're going and what I've served in the past. Just wish the state would go that way. Can't do nothing about federal, but at least in our local state level, why can't we dispense with the politics? But it's just a shame, but that's the way it is. But I think this committee, going back to the subject matter, I think the committee was set up so that it was a good bipartisan committee, so that it would have support from both parties. And everybody has to admit, this is a common problem throughout the whole state. Different degrees of it in different ways, but in general, it is a big problem. It's a problem in our community. You can't get your kids to stay in town because there's no place to live. You know, when you have kids, they grow up, what do? They move away and they never come back.
Sometimes that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's why our family units are going. Families can't stay together because they become separated. You know, jobs do that too. And again, proper housing also keeps good jobs. So people don't have to move to go to work. Stay low. But anyway, that's a long, long story, but thank you, Greg. Oh, that brings up another subject. We need to appoint a new alternate to the Rockingham Planning Commission. Tim Moore and myself are Rockingham Planning Commissioners, and the Board of Selectmen appoint the commissioners. We have just lost our alternate.
Who was that, Steve?
Steve was actually an alternate. He'd never been to one, but he was our alternate. So we should appoint an alternate at this point to take his place.
Did you have anybody in mind?
Well, I know someone that is so interested, he's been to 2 meetings recently. I don't know if he would be interested in
What did I
becoming the
tell you?
alternate.
I'll give you my answer after I think about it.
Alternates don't have to show up all the time. Okay, but that is something we need to do. We need to appoint an alternate, which is the person who gets called to take the place, and you have a vote at the Rockingham Planning Commission. So Tim and I are currently the ones that are the regulars, and I don't even know when our terms are up. I think it was like a 4-year term or something, whenever it comes up. But the board does appoint who the commissioners are that represent our community. If there's no volunteers.
Maybe, let me think about it too.
Or you
next
think about it,
week.
let us know next week. Because right now, the position is open.
You wanna-
All right, I just want to ask, and I also want to, all right, your report now, I guess.
I was on vacation, so only thing I got to report is I had a good time.
Good for you.
Excellent. You're the best one. All right, mine, I'm not going to repeat. I went also to the Rockingham Planning Commission meeting, which was in Northampton.
Yeah, yeah.
There was, I went to the Budget Committee meeting too. So I kind of pop in on all those meetings. I also had some comments made to me, or let's say, concerning elderly exemptions in town. And there was concern that people were getting exemptions that didn't qualify because they were not claiming their assets properly.
What is the law regarding that? What can we request?
Yes.
1040?
And I'll just give you
or
some
something?
numbers, because I then went through the list. I'm trying to say, there were approximately 73 residents receiving exemptions total. And let's just pick one set of exemptions, which is the majority. Elderly exemptions, it came out to about 8.4 million in exemptions. And I'm sure that most of them are deserved, and they were voted on by the public and whatever. But it's not right if someone doesn't qualify and they don't put forth what they own to get the exemption. Because then what happens, they're being subsidized by the rest. For instance, if I'm well off and I'm doing well, I don't need that exemption.
What's the age limit?
There are a couple differences, like a 60-something and there's a 70-something, they're different. I didn't get all the details on the exemptions, we can go look at it, but.
Check any of the backgrounds?
I did question Lori, she says there have been people in the past that have not, and by accident, they were found out that they had these assets they didn't report on their forms, which put them over the limit. I don't think everything's always intentional or whatever, but it's just, the simple solution is, if someone applies for an exemption, you can do an asset search. And I don't think it's not very expensive. Looked real quick on the internet, I guess, and it could be anything $100 to $200. But if one person is found out that they're, basically it's almost, if you're doing an intention, it's fraud. But then it well more than pays for itself, considering how much tax revenue you lose for just the couple that are not reporting their assets. It's a touchy subject, I'm not going to give names or anything.
So let me ask the question again, because
Yeah.
I don't quite think I got it answered. There's a form where they're filling it out,
Yes.
but can we require a 1040 to know what this
Well, the
person
thing is,
is
that
making?
a lot of these things that they're not reporting are not on their tax statement. We get the tax statement and all that. It's just that, let's say I own an expensive car.
But do we?
Or I own some property in another state, and I don't report it. There's no way for us to know.
So I can
Yeah.
answer that, So 1040 is earned income.
Yes.
That is one of the requirements
Yes.
Okay.
to find that out. The component that the chairman's talking about is that if somebody has assets that exceed the limit of what the town allows, they have $250,000 in assets, then they wouldn't qualify. So it's not just age, it's age, their income, and their assets. It's a formula. So what the chairman is talking about is to look at maybe an enhanced asset search to look to see if there's something that they're not reporting that would otherwise disqualify them. And what he's saying is for the amount of money that it would take to increase the asset search, $150 to $200, as soon as you find one successful disqualification, that can be anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000. So it more than pays for itself.
And it also sets a precedence.
And I think it deters.
Right.
So our process right now could be improved with asset searches where you could require social security numbers, and then you can hire a firm that specializes in asset investigations, and then they search in all the places and track things down from different angles and find out what people have.
I'd be in favor of that.
Yeah, I mean, the $8 million tax exemptions that they receive in total, that number, and I'm not picking on that group, you know, there's also the veterans credits. Anything that is offset with an exemption has to be paid for by the other taxpayers.
Correct.
So what you're really doing is focusing in on to say, are these people committing a fraud? Because if they're committing a fraud, then they're committing a fraud on the rest of the taxpayers.
Correct.
It's not targeted towards anybody, it's just to do more of a asset investigation
Due
to make sure.
diligence,
Due diligence, right, because we'd be negligent with our fiduciary responsibility, not so much me or you, but as a total picture here, if we don't perform our financial or our fiduciary responsibilities to make sure that the people that actually get in the exemption are actually entitled to the exemption.
So what do we have to do to put this in place?
Basically, you need to review the policy you currently have
Okay.
and adopt a more proactive due diligence to have asset searches conducted by the professionals out there that can trace down, you know, their possessions and accounts and things that they're not reporting.
Okay,
It could be easy, they can search and they'll find you have a bank account in Iowa or something. They could say you have a property in Michigan.
so is our
They could say
policy,
you own a car because
is
from
our
other
policy
records or
part
state
of,
deposits
it's
or
not part of
insurance
the
on
town
jewelry.
code.
I think it should be a must.
No, it's
It is a,
We're handing over.
So your policy is that at some point in time, you passed a warrant article to have elderly exemptions. But that's just to have it for the certain limits.
Yeah.
What you're doing is you're gonna, the investigation you have for the assets, you're just gonna expand that so that you're looking wider and farther. You're not changing the policy.
so what do we need to do? What does the Board of Selectmen
Review.
need to do? Do we need to make a
Probably,
motion? or-
probably just maybe have one more meeting to look at the policy and all the parameters and understand that what it is we're about to do will cost X amount of dollars
Okay.
to do, because you're gonna do it for all of them.
Yeah,
And so you take however many people, and I think I looked at that list, it was 55. So if you did 55 times 150, you know, quick math, it's gonna be probably around $8,000. So, but you know, you come up with two people that don't apply again because they don't wanna do this.
They don't wanna get
or
caught.
They don't wanna comply, or that you find out that they've they've been less than truthful, or they didn't realize their assets were over. You've just paid for the amount of cost that you have, and then it will deter.
so I don't know where this policy is, but could you provide that to the Selectmen?
This
or
was.
Tell me where
Yeah,
this policy is.
Well, we have a policy right now, which was passed by the voters, to say, these are your limits.
Right.
You can't have more than this, and
Oh,
you,
okay.
and so forth.
Yeah, and then they go to Lori.
So that already exists.
Okay,
They go to Lori and they give her the paperwork that they voluntarily give.
I understand.
But she
All
has
I
no
want-
way to verify it's right.
So we'll get a copy of the policy
that's all,
and
that's
review
what I
it.
want to do, is I want to know what we need to do as a board
We can have that
to
for the
put this
next
in
meeting.
place.
Yeah, we're gonna get a copy of the policy, review it.
Yep.
And then
Excellent.
And then if the board directs more due diligence to check on people's assets that have applied, then there's a cost for that, and then we would do that.
Just remember, last year, the limit, the asset limit was increased.
Yeah.
It was passed by the voters.
Correct.
Right.
It was, but yeah, and that's correct. I mean, it's not gonna hurt anybody that's being honest about it.
But it's actually allowing the people who are in need and the people who have earned these exemptions through service, military service, to basically get this big benefit without somebody else coming in who really does not deserve it.
Yeah. Yeah, the veterans was like $500 or something.
Well,
Yeah, but the thing is,
still.
that's already verified by their DD 214s.
There's no income related.
There's no
to that.
income requirements or anything like
Right.
that. But the other ones, it can count, it comes up to a lot.
Substantial amount.
It's anywhere from $110,000 or $150,000 exemption.
Good.
100, there's 170.
Depends on how, what your age and what
Each
you're,
and
yeah.
so forth, you know.
I mean, if a person qualifies for it and they need that help,
That's a different
we
thing.
voted for that. That's not a problem.
Right.
It's just that if anyone's taking advantage of it
If people commit
dishonestly, that's the
outright
problem.
fraud, okay,
Yeah.
that's against the law.
Excellent. Thank you.
And it was kind of mentioned to me, and I says, I can't now just walk away from this if I know this.
No, it's a good idea.
And we are the assessor, we are the Board of Assessors, and it's our responsibility if we're just allowed, and see, Lori has no resources or way to see if somebody's defrauding.
Right.
Because she could only get what they put in front of her, or what they honestly, and like you said, they may have forgotten they own something. Who knows?
May have forgotten they
It's
have,
not always-
$500,000 in the bank.
Yeah, or maybe they didn't
They
think,
forgot to give you their
they didn't think that
savings account number.
Mercedes was part of the assets, or something like that, who knows? But anyway, it's not to target anybody. I'm not trying to be, against people, but it is our due diligence. It is about, it's a lot of money when you add it up.
We good?
That we're giving it to the people that qualify. All right. One question I want to ask the town manager, the new phone service that you were talking about, when might that happen?
I don't know.
So we can call Greg without using his home phone number.
It's a work in progress.
What is that, a napkin?
Yeah, sometimes that's my, I start forgetting things, and I says, I can't remember what that question was.
Wonderful
So
business
I had a
ideas.
napkin, and I wrote it down on the napkin.
Wonderful business ideas.
I was at
that
the
have been written
restaurant
on
with my
napkins.
wife, and I says, you know what, I forgot about this. I'm gonna write this down so I don't forget. So, yes, it is a napkin.
You could have got a clean napkin to do it.
It is clean. I think we covered everything.
Good.
And so in that last
8:45.
issue I brought up, we're in agreement to move forward and get more information so we can actually adopt a policy that
Very good.
corrects that issue.
Yeah, we're gonna review that, change it.
Okay.
8:45?
All right, then, if there's nothing else, then I will adjourn this meeting at 8:45.
Thank you.